Welcome to CS Radio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 227 of CS Radio. I'm J. Michael DeAngelis.
I'm N. Thomas Leach.
I had to stop and think.
No, I had
to think about the episode number.
Okay.
But I think I'm good. Really, who's counting other than me? Other than me.
I'm not.
I know you're not.
If you just say a random number, I would never know.
I think the funniest thing that has happened today is that when we were at lunch and we were talking about your penchant for doing your own thing, and our colleague Laura said, well, I think if Michael told you to do something, you would do it. And I was like, oh, no. No, perhaps me least of all.
No. If there are certain things that you told me to do, of course I would do it. But there's a threshold, so watch it.
I think I told you to be the co-host of this podcast, and that might have been the last important thing you followed my
That's the line
on.
that you're right up against.
So today, we're going to, speaking of some funny things, we're going to look at one of our favorite subreddits, which is LinkedIn Lunatics.
Lunatics.
I found this, I've been looking at this for maybe about a year. And given both my sense of humor and the line of work that we're in, I can find this subreddit endlessly fascinating and funny. Do you want to give a quick rundown for people who don't know what it is?
Well, the idea is people post different photos, just screenshots of LinkedIn, that are essentially of the most unhinged takes that they can find, where people are really like over professionalizing things. It's a mix of, I think the ones that are less interesting but still sometimes quite funny are like the super either humble brags or the person is very clearly just like talking themselves up. Like I never thought that closing a $10 million deal would be all it was made out to be.
Right.
Or something like that. But we chose ones that we thought had particular relevance to people in the workplace, suggestions and types of advice. A lot of times it's advice given. You'll see a lot of recruiters be like, oh, always do this or never do this. And sometimes it's a little
when
too
you speak
far.
in absolutes, that's maybe not always going to go down well. But I think, yes, it can be very funny because, yes, people can be very extreme, both in, yes, their quasi-humbleness or their just complete lack of humility. There's a lot of again, LinkedIn is designed to be a self-promotional platform, and some people take that to the extreme. But also people sometimes post things that can generate some real legitimate discussion about the job search, and we're going to talk a little bit about today.
And one of the things that's interesting is no matter how unhinged these takes are, these are real people. These are real recruiters.
Yeah.
So even if we can sit here and say, why would you ever worry about that? Or, oh, that's way too far. There's someone out there in the world who did think that way and did review a candidate in that light. So I think it's sometimes interesting to think about it from that standpoint.
You got to know what some people are thinking out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that could be from a take of, oh, let me avoid, if this is a simple thing to not have to worry about, if I just don't do this weird little thing that they're griping over, fine. Or it might just be like, oh, these are the types of employers I want to avoid entirely to not work for someone who has this kind of take.
All right, so let's dive in. Now, this first one actually doesn't come from LinkedIn Lunatics, but it's from one of the work subreddits, and it's a topic that I don't think we've discussed on the podcast before, but it's something I know we've discussed with students. And the title here is, My Job Offers Unlimited PTO, but Using It Feels Like a Trap. And they go on to discuss that in the job interview that people were bragging about not having taken any PTO, which is, for you don't know, paid time off, your vacation time at all, or like this guy says, someone said they hadn't used their PTO in 3 years. So you have it, but why would you use it?
That's one of those humble brags.
That's
you might
a real
see
LinkedIn lunatic kind of statement. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's a more and more common offering, particularly in the tech space, that there's no, here at Penn, there is a system to our PTO. We earn a certain amount of time off for the amount of time that we work. And once you've been here a certain amount of time, you sort of hit that level. So basically, you and I have been here long enough. We earn 2 days off a month.
Not bad.
No, very generous.
And when you're like me and you don't actually take very much PTO to begin with, you're maxed out. I just put in my request because I have to take 2 days before the end of the month.
I'm going to have to do the same. I'm
out.
always floating up at my top. We can carry 28 days.
It's either 24 or 28.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Close to a month's worth of time. So, yes, very generous. And that's on top of sick time and bereavement time. So but other places just say, take it when you need it. There's no cap.
Yeah, and that sounds nice. It comes up a lot when we're talking with students who are interested in negotiating their offers or just considering what is the package I'm getting for this offer for a new job. And sometimes I'll ask like, oh, it's kind of rare. These things are pretty standardized, but sometimes people bring up things like PTO, how many days they get, or their accrual. And sometimes I'll have students be like, oh, well, no, it's great. It's awesome. I have unlimited PTO. And I have to be like, well, is it unlimited? I think is the big question. And what's really being posed here is the idea of like, when an employer says that you have unlimited PTO, do they really mean that?
Right. To me, the lack of structure to it creates an inequality. So, okay, everybody gets unlimited PTO. But if Natty doesn't take PTO, which he doesn't often, right, and he just keeps on working, and I'm like, well, I'm going to take 2 weeks and go to a family reunion or something. Do I look like I'm taking too much? That there's no standard to measure yourself against. So here, Natty and I basically, if we don't want to lose our PTO and we're at our max, we have to take 2 days off somewhere in a month, right? And we're encouraged to do it, and it's just what you do, right? That's what it is.
And that's kind of the biggest part to me is that there's a huge disparity in understanding the expectations, especially of your manager or whoever like you're directly reporting to. And so like here at Penn, like we have good managers who understand that this is a good benefit. You should be doing that. I just put in that request and David approved it within an hour or so. No questions asked. Whereas another manager at another company,
I'm already just like thinking about the next 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't know that I can take it.
Well, that's what happens to me a lot. Is like I just got to find a day somewhere to figure it out. But with this unlimited thing, it might very much depend on the person's manager or the understanding of like, what does this unlimited really mean? Is there like a soft line? Is it?
Yeah.
If you take more than 5 days in a row, then it's a huge problem. If you take a certain number of days and you're not meeting the goals that we need, that's when it's a problem. Or is it truly just the job? Are you getting the job done or not? I could see at a company there being a manager who's much more flexible with understanding that. I've talked to friends who are even in positions where they have, I have unlimited PTO. I'm going to use it for a month to do this. And my head was like, is that okay? And they're like, well, yeah, my manager is totally fine with it. And that's where I think
that's
is a
amazing.
Really good benefit. Yeah. But the obscurity of it, I think, hinders some people who may not be as comfortable asking that thing, or just maybe there would be a penalty, right? Even if it's not as explicit. Someone's commitment to the job might be questioned unfairly, even though in their eyes they were just using the benefit that was laid out to them even when they kind of had all their work lined out and they did what they needed to do.
Yeah. So someone asked the question, is unlimited PTO just corporate gaslighting? I don't want to say yes, but I think it can be.
Yeah.
I think it can be used maliciously instead of.
I'm sure it started as like a startup or someone that was trying to be super flexible with getting the right people.
Yes,
in,
it's what sets us apart from the corporate world, right? We've got this flexibility.
And then it was co-opted by larger corporations as a way to compete against that. And then there are some managers who are not as okay with that than others.
Yeah, I think that's so. It's again, it goes back to asking the questions that are important to you. So, okay, the benefits package says unlimited PTO. What does that mean to you as my potential manager, right? Like, how much vacation do people take on average? How is vacation viewed? Am I expected to wait a certain amount of time before I take a vacation? I think it was a YouTube short not that long ago that was like, the only way to handle this is to accept the job and immediately go on PTO, come back for like a day, get your ID card, and then immediately go out again. And if you ever go into work, then you've failed yourself. Obviously, that is an extreme take on that. So I think you got to ask, you got to research company culture.
Do your best to understand, what those expectations are. Whether that's having a touch point with HR or better understanding your direct manager or a colleague, whatever it might be. Like, try to feel that out as much as you can.
Yeah. So that was that's one that has come up. I've definitely talked to students about that, but I don't think we've ever dedicated any time to talk about it. So I think it's worth discussing. All right. So now we're moving in officially into the realm of the LinkedIn lunatics. And this one, we're going to look at looks like someone wants to control his employees with a cheap excuse.
I would say some of these, there is, like, I think some gray area where sometimes people have a little bit of a point, but maybe they go too far.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Like,
well, I kicked the last one off. You go ahead and you run this one down.
All right. So I'll summarize some of this. I'll read the very first line, which is just turn on you fricking camera.
Right.
Typo right off the start.
Right.
They're so hot about people not having their cameras on that they couldn't even form a complete sentence.
They skipped right over that R.
And kind of the crux of their point is working remotely, it feels like if your camera's not on, you're not focused, that you're hiding, and that meetings, they aren't podcasts.
Meetings aren't podcasts. I'll tell you what, this podcast, the camera's on. Camera is on.
The person says that your presence matters. The blank screen signals only one thing: you don't care. And this is part of where, like, you know, you've gone too far probably. Even if there is like some start of a merit to how you present yourself professionally in certain settings. It goes on to say, you know, the best people show up, the worst make excuses. If your Wi-Fi is bad, your real problem isn't bandwidth, it's your effort. It kind of gets really judgy here. Talks about if the person's background is all messy, you really need to clean it up. And if you're just preferring the audio for whatever reason, you don't want the visual aspect, then this person is saying that you're telling everyone you're half engaged at best. So what do you think?
Well, again, I think if there's any good points in here, it's obscured by the overreacting and the overstatements here. So I'll just start with a blank statement that, like, despite how many years we've been doing it, having virtual meetings is still unnatural.
Yes, there is an inherent challenge here that I think this person is trying to get at the point of, that it does exist. There's a reality where virtual meetings can be hard. I think especially you become acutely aware of it if you are a presenter, if you're presenting in some sort of way. This happens to us in workshops all the time. We present to a workshop, to a virtual room of all
sea
cameras
of just
off,
black
and,
Zoom names. Yeah.
You know, who or what are you even talking to? You're just kind of speaking out to the void.
To me, that's even a little different, because they are just your audience. You know, obviously you want them to be engaged, and if you're in person, it can be a little easier to engage it. But I've stood. We were just talking in that same conversation at lunch about when I had to address the staff at our last retreat. It was very difficult because it had been a very long day, and I was talking to like a sea of blank stares.
And that was in person.
And that was in person. But when it's a meeting, it can be tough. Now, I try to have my camera on, particularly if I'm going to be speaking. But sometimes, like, if you're in these big divisional meetings and it's like 100+ people in there, who cares if your camera's on or not?
And there's a reality of people can multitask. People can still be engaged without being present. I think, like, physically, visually present. I think especially there's been a ton of Zoom fatigue coming out of remote work, that there's a reality there that maybe you can be even more engaged by turning your camera off. I mean, I do this all the time when we're in meetings sometimes. I've been doing this in the summer funding meetings. I'm still engaged in listening to the conversations going on, but when I'm not speaking or it's not my turn to go over one of the candidates we reviewed, I turn my camera off and I'm playing guitar. But I'm still listening to the conversation. I'm kind of just like doodling on my guitar as things are going on. But I'm there and I'm engaged, and, you know, as soon as something comes up, I'll undo the camera, I'll unmute and add and contribute. But it's hard to tell. I think this person's insecurity probably is shining through, where maybe they're a manager and they question how engaged are these people. Are they just, entering the Zoom room, turning their camera off, and going outside to go for a jog around the block or something like that, and they don't even know. If
Yeah,
they're really
and
there.
like you can, I really take issue with if you just prefer audio, you're telling everyone you're half engaged at best. That's definitely not true.
No.
I mean, that's just like learning modes, right? Like
Yeah.
some people, it's easier for them to concentrate if they're just listening to the voices rather than I'm seeing what's behind Natty and I'm seeing what's on Barb's shelf. Or Barb had a little kitten on camera today, and I just wanted to look at the kitten.
And some things that help you focus. So like me playing my guitar, that's probably distracting to other people.
Yeah, of course.
If someone on camera saw that I had my guitar out, then the chat starts going like, "Oh, Natty plays a song, dude, whatever, blah, blah, blah."
Right. And so, in my feeling is if you can if you can do that, if you're going to play the guitar or you're going to I'm often like looking at an email or something at the same time. I also
or I know people have like fidget spinners or something.
Yeah, I'm a big multitasker. My brain likes to keep concentrating on different things. But as long as you could be engaged in the conversation, then I don't really care how you're doing it. And so it's one thing if your camera's off and I go. And so, Natty, do you have those updates about Handshake? Natty, are you there? Did Natty get disconnected? What's going on? I see his name, and then you come back on. You're like, oh, what? Sorry. Oh yeah, Handshake. That's not great.
Yeah, and part of the things that annoys me, this comes up a lot with these types of posts, is I think a lot of times they're broad, overreaching, global reactions. When really, if this is a problem with an individual, if you're a manager, you should discuss it with that individual and talk about how can we keep you engaged. Like, what are some things we can do to put you in a better position when this is going on?
Yeah, these huge blanket statements aren't helpful to anybody.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's another thing that actually has to be said, which is, again, despite how long we've been doing it, despite the age that we live in and the age that most people grew up in, some people are not good with technology.
That's true, too.
Right? Particularly in higher ed. And so you do have, you can say to yourself, how can we be this far into this and you still don't know how to unmute yourself? But it's just a reality, right? And if that's not, being an expert in Zoom is maybe more a part of a job now than it has been in the past, but you have to, give people the grace to be like, I'm a career counselor, not a webinar expert.
Yeah. And I think there is some self-reflection, too, on the idea of if you're leading what is supposed to be a meeting that most people feel they can get what they need out of it by still just turning their camera off and listening here or there, and they're not as engaged as you want them to be, maybe you need to change the format or, be more engaging or do something a little bit differently to better make it worth their time. Maybe if you're just doing a meeting where everyone is going around talking about something that's not as relevant to other people that are in that meeting, maybe you need to refocus and make it more of a working meeting where you plan together and collaborate or something, rather than making a blanket statement that disparages lots of people when you could maybe change things to make it better for everyone.
Yeah. So, yep. Sorry, you're a LinkedIn lunatic. All right. Oh. This is a tough one. Don't be so desperate. So we've got the vomiting emoji here as the main image, vomiting over the LinkedIn #OpenToWork badge, which is something that you could put on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who have used LinkedIn have probably seen that on people.
That allows people to know, hey, I'm on the job search, or I'm working, but I'm open to offers. And so this person apparently really dislikes that, and they say, whenever I meet someone looking for a job, the first thing I tell them is to remove this banner from LinkedIn. There's really no scenario where it's going to help you. People who are hiring the best are hunters, not gatherers. Availability is seen as desperation. Well, maybe in the dating world.
Yeah, another thing we haven't brought up is a lot of these end up being hyper macho in a way.
Oh,
absolutely. We're looking for hunters, or we are hunters.
Absolutely.
They have a really high opinion of themselves.
The toxic masculinity of this post is jumping off the screen. So let's just break this down. So, Natty, would you tell a student or anyone to remove that banner from their LinkedIn profile?
I would never go out of my way to tell someone to remove it. However, I kind of understand their point in a way.
Okay.
And this is where it gets into, like, as much as I would never have this take, and I would never expect lots of people to have this take, this is someone who has this is a real person who has this take who might be looking for someone to hire.
Sure.
And maybe it does add layers of questions to the person's commitment to their job. I think the problem is those are things that you don't know everyone's individual situation. You don't know why someone is #open to work.
Yeah.
It could be that the company is closing in a few months and they're getting a head start on things and everyone knows that's what's happening. Could be you're moving across the country. You maybe the person's partner got a new job in California and you're moving from Pennsylvania, and so you're looking for things in California while you're still working there. In the meantime,
yeah.
I mean, there's lots of reasons that I don't think speak to someone's commitment.
Again,
that
you
could
can't
be a part
speak
of
in
this.
absolutes. There's
Exactly.
no one reason to be doing this.
I think that probably you will attract more positive attention around the banner than you would negative attention. So even though there's this one person having this extreme take, I'm sure there's more people who see the #open to work thing and think, oh, if I'm looking for someone that's interesting, this person's profile looks interesting, maybe I'll send them a message to
Right.
connect.
And also, again, like we say about so many things, if you're the kind of boss that's going to have this attitude and be posting this, I maybe it's good because you're not the kind of person.
Yeah.
I
Do you want to work for a
right?
hunter?
So I've got open to work up on my LinkedIn profile. You've got this up on your LinkedIn profile. What does that say about you?
But it's true. These are all publicly available things that people posted on their own accounts. So I think as much as they're judging other people broadly, when you individually look at someone who you might be working with or might be your manager and you see something like this, you might start to see, oh, maybe this is not someone who'd be good to work for.
And again, yes, what really makes me bristle here is availability is seen as desperation.
Yeah.
And so that tells me this is the kind of person that only wants what they can have in whatever scenario that is.
Chasing the prestige, whatever it might be.
Chasing the prestige, chasing the man or woman that they can't have, wanting something, I want what's over there. I want the awards that person has. I want the money that person has.
Yeah. Which kind of speaks to a potential like admission, right, of maybe a purpose of why they would put open to work. They see it as a disgruntled thing as opposed to it being more of a positive element or something that just better describes the situation the person's in, even if you don't have the full context.
Right, because, availability is not
No,
inspiration.
and
it's just
not
a
always up
reality.
to everyone, too. I mean,
That's exactly right.
We're seeing lots of either hiring freeze, layoffs in all sorts of different industries. And why wouldn't you recommend if someone just recently lost their job, whether that's the federal government or research position, all sorts of things right now? Why wouldn't you recommend, hey, yeah, put open to work on your profile because you are literally open to work right now?
Yeah. So, yep, definitely another lunatic. All right, what do we got next, Natty?
Let me see. All right, so we have one that is, let me see. I'm going to skip ahead to one.
All right.
And it is about showing up early.
Mm-hmm.
And this person's take is, I'm reading from the LinkedIn post. I had a candidate show up 25 minutes early to an interview for an office administrator position last week. That was a major deciding factor in why I didn't hire him. And then there's a post underneath it saying, here's why I saw this as a negative. I think a lot of times if I just read that first part, you might be like, oh, yeah, that could be good, right? Like they were early and on time. But he ended up going on to say showing up early is good, but showing up extremely early can suggest that someone is not good with time management or that they expect to be accommodated time-wise.
Okay, again, there's a kernel of truth in here somewhere with some weird trappings around it.
One, I mean, the accommodated part is a little particularly weird.
I mean, again, he's not giving us the full context of this post, but did the person show up 25 minutes early and say, I demand to be seen now? Or did they say, I know I'm early, I'm happy to wait? Just let them know that I'm here.
Which would be perfectly reasonable. I've been on hiring committees with people who have had a similar take to this before, where someone has like come in, 10 or 15 minutes early and sat in the waiting room, and they'd be like, oh, they really put us out. They're really putting pressure on us. I was like, why do you feel pressure? They're not banging down the door to say, like, you need to see me right now. They're just, here early and ready whenever we're ready. But, I mean, everyone should be at least... I mean, there's the opposite take of this is I wouldn't be surprised if there's a complete reverse LinkedIn lunatic post of someone saying, I never hire anyone unless they're 15 minutes early.
Oh, I'm
or something.
sure.
And if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late.
But I was on a hiring committee once where the very first person we interviewed came early, and the person said to me, bad start. I was like, what? I was like, if someone came to career services and asked me for advice, I would tell them, yeah, go early. Again, they weren't outrageously early. Now, it turned out there was a little bit of miscommunication. I think the person conducting the interview had the wrong idea about when the interview was starting, so they thought they were much earlier than they actually were. But just like the knee-jerk reaction was, no, you shouldn't come early. And I was like, I really don't see what the problem is. I will say, I think 25, 30
it's a
minutes
little early.
is a little, you're going into the red zone of being like, because then you can think, oh, did I have the time as the hiring person? Did I have the time wrong? Did I miscommunicate something? Did they misunderstand something? It can raise a lot of questions.
Yeah.
That it may or may, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me the way that it is
or
for
even
this
something that's
person.
really thought about.
But I think it's something to consider that like 15 minutes, that's you're in the safe zone, right? 25 minutes, okay, just be prepared to wait and go in, say, I know I'm early, but I'm happy to sit and wait.
Yeah. And I mean, my general recommendation is if it makes you comfortable to go 30 plus minutes earlier for whatever reason, go that earlier, but you don't necessarily have to go right into the office.
Don't have to go check in.
Take a walk around
That is
the
exactly
block.
what
like,
I would do.
Go to a coffee shop across the street. Like, give yourself some time to really, like, reflect on the things you want to do to be in your own zen state before you actually go into the interview. Like, there are things you can do in that time where you still know you'll be there at an appropriate time without having to
The last time I had to be in that situation, I did. I was about half an hour early. I found a coffee shop. I had 2 Americanos.
You were wired.
And a biscotti, which turned out to be good because it was a really long day. But it was really nice to have that time to sit, collect my thoughts, have some caffeine, sort of get my mind ready for the interview.
Yeah,
was really helpful, and not be riding that nervousness of I just walked through the door.
And sometimes you can learn more about the environment too. Like if it's like higher ed, like our jobs, you get to see the campus a little bit.
Absolutely, and I was in a new city that I had been to, but I hadn't spent really any time, so I got to walk around and be like,
what for lunch?
What are the lunch options?
Yeah.
Exactly. Where would I be going to lunch? Where would I be walking to? How far is it from the train station?
Where's the closest bus stop? Like all these
that
types of
kind
things
of
that could
stuff.
help influence your decision.
Yep. So
you could do and
so
get a lot out.
So be early. Do you have to show up 25 minutes early and check in? No, but 15 minutes, I think it's totally fine. So, I mean, again, like, yes, I could see why it might raise some questions about time management. I think this guy's way overreacting, but it's worth considering. What are you asking of the person? And again, we don't have the context here.
And it's hard because, this person could have come in and told the person at the front desk, I'm here to see so-and-so. Sorry, I'm a little bit early. I'll just sit over here. And then the person at the front desk just tells so-and-so, oh, they're here.
That's also true, right?
Yeah.
So, again, way overreacting. I'm going to have to thumbs down that guy as well.
Do we have one more?
I've got one more tab open here, and I'm looking at Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I was skipping over that one because I didn't want to give an intro to Dave Ramsey.
Well, so you've left it to me?
Yes.
I've only recently become aware of Dave.
Yeah, I've seen
Ramsey.
a few of his clips and shorts and stuff out there. I mean, he gives general business advice. I think he does call-in style.
So he's got a call-in show, and he gives financial advice. So you call him and you say, I'm trying to work out my retirement, or I've got this much sunk into my house. It's a lot of sob stories, for lack of a better term, people who have really struggled financially, and then he gives some advice. When I first saw him, I thought, well, one, he's very charismatic. So I thought, oh, this is interesting, and this guy's giving what seems to be, I know he markets as like no-brainer stuff, right? It's like, this, just stick to the basics. And the first couple things I saw, I was like, well, that's actually pretty good advice for someone.
And that can be helpful. So simplifying complex ideas can sometimes be the most helpful
exactly.
thing.
I said, for someone who's trying to set themselves up into a better place financially, sometimes some real basic advice is just like a great step. Now, the more I learned about Dave Ramsey, he's probably not my favorite person. There's a lot of selling people on classes, and there's a lot of exploitive stuff, and maybe some of the people calling in, the advice is maybe not the best for them.
Well, I think when I just mentioned the simplification being useful. I mean, it's kind of like all of these posts, right? When you oversimplify something too much or it becomes too much of an absolute, that's when things can feel.
Yes, and also the idea that it's all you need. Like once you do this simple thing, you're going to turn into a millionaire.
Yeah.
So let's see what this post has to say about Dave Ramsey. So someone posted they caught Dave Ramsey yesterday saying this: "If you ask about work-life balance in an interview, you've already disqualified yourself." That's my best.
That was a good impression.
And then the LinkedIn poster says, "And he's right. Work-life balance matters, but bringing it up too early screams, I'm already planning my escape. Earn trust first, then earn flexibility." What a load of horse pucky.
So, I mean, I kind of get it.
But this is such an extreme take on it.
From a human perspective, it's really silly to say you shouldn't ask questions like this, because you should. I don't think anyone wants, including an employer, doesn't want to hire someone and then them have a totally misunderstanding the idea of what their expectations are for the job.
Absolutely.
Because then they'll be out the door
Absolutely.
faster.
I mean, so right away, so if Dave Ramsey truly said this, and we don't know that he did, this is just what somebody said on LinkedIn. So, but I disagree with the statement that you would be disqualifying yourself by asking about work-life balance interview. Absolutely not true. And then I have to disagree with this guy who doubles down on it in his LinkedIn post that I'm already planning my escape. That is the worst take of that. All right. Disqualifying yourself again, I don't agree, but I can kind of see what somebody's saying, that from the employer standpoint, you're focused on the wrong things in the interview, but not, I'm already thinking about
some people take the most negative possible response to something and say that must be. That's the impression
absolutely.
I'm getting. And going back to what I said earlier, like, there are truly some people who think that way, and this might be the impression you give off to some people, even if it's not where you're going from or even realistic. I think like the counterpoint to this is that asking a question like this or better understanding the role is not about planning your escape. It's about better planning how comfortable, how adept, how successful you're going to be in that role. If you know like what the requirements are and how you can balance the rest of the true commitments in your life, you'll probably be better in that job. So I think really there's a clear counterpoint that is the opposite of, they're not trying to plan their escape. They're trying to just better understand and be a better worker for that company. You could easily make that argument.
Mm-hmm.
But you do want to kind of avoid it sounding like you're only there for the benefits. You're only trying to get the most out, or
there
do
is
the
a
least amount of
difference
work
between asking what the work-life balance is and saying something like, well, I really like to set my own schedule. So if the workday starts at 9, I don't really like to come in before noon. I have to leave every day at 3 to go to my tennis lesson, or I got to walk my dog. I mean, whatever it is. If you're like just laying out almost a list of demands, that is very different than asking, what's the work-life balance for? Am I expected to be on call 24/7? If the day ends at 5, is my work truly over at 5, or can I be expecting emails and calls throughout the night? Am I expected, if I'm not done my work at 5, that it be done by the time I come in the next? Like, those are all legit questions, and it goes back, and that goes into very tied into what we started with, is this unlimited PTO. So if there's an unlimited PTO program, how do people take advantage of that or not take advantage of that? What's the expectation? how do you prioritize people with families? Like, I have to pick up my kids every day, or I have a sick parent that I take care of. I have to maybe my parents live in a different state and they're not doing well, so I know that I'm going to be traveling. Like, is it okay if I work remotely? Can I work from a plane one day so that I'm not losing time, but I'm willing to do that if you're giving me that flexibility with my schedule? Those are all 100% legit questions to be asking, would not necessarily disqualify you. Now, it might be that particular employer or that job doesn't mesh with your particular life, but you've asked and you found out.
Yeah, and you don't want the phrase to come across that way. I mean, some of it is also knowledge of the industry. I think for the average job out there, this is a totally fine question to ask. I think in some ways it's an encouraged question to ask. Some people are going to be excited to talk about
sure.
In higher ed, in government positions. You hear about government positions all the time. I went to the NSA for a site visit a few years ago, and one of their big sells to their candidates is the work-life balance here is tremendous because we require it. You're working with a lot of really classified information. We want you to have a separation of work and life, because when you're done here, we don't want you having any of that information at home or having access to that. We want you to, as much as possible, compartmentalize those things so you don't put any secrets out there or put any risk on the government in certain ways.
Can I interest them in a severance program?
It does sound
right
like that. So, I mean, knowledge of the industry can help here with that. I think, looking at an industry like investment banking where you just kind of go in expecting, oh, this is going to be a 12-hour workday or something. Maybe this isn't the right question to ask that setting where you already know the hours are going to be crazy.
Sure.
If you're looking at like an 80-hour work week from
yes, you have to go in having done a little detective work beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think you still want to know the answer to this question. So you have to find the
right way
to ask it or the right way to ask it.
Within the context of what you know. So I know the hours long. I know I'm expected to work 80 hours a week, whatever it is. So where how do you value work-life balance in light of that, right? With that as a given.
Yeah, or it could be just stressing the importance of also doing the networking piece of reaching out to someone who works at the company already, or a Penn alum, or someone who can have more of a casual conversation with, who can be really upfront with you and say, oh, this is what I really liked about the work-life balance, this is where it's not so great, and then you get a more realistic answer where I think most employers have asked that question are going to be relatively rosy about it, I think, for the most part, and say, oh, yeah, we encourage people to have a work-life balance when necessary. But then there might be like a ... of what that really means. So having a better conversation with someone who's on the inside can sometimes be an easier way to not have the judgment that could be attached if someone has this same kind of take that we're seeing here. Or if it's for an industry that you already know is traditionally really high stress, high pressure, and they expect a lot out of when you're working, including access and availability to you 24/7 in some cases.
Well, Natty, this was a lot of fun. I think that, like I said at the top, I've been subscribed to LinkedIn Lunatics for about a year. I always get a good hearty laugh out of it. But I think that, for somebody on the job search or someone with an interest in careers, it could be a fun place to visit, because it can also, it can spark some of these discussions for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're looking at something, okay, I can laugh because this guy's being really extreme about it. But what do I think about unlimited PTO? What do I want my work-life balance to be? So it's actually might be a fun way to kind of crystallize some of the things that are important to you.
Yep, in either the employer, the industry, the job function itself, that can be really revealing personally to you. And it's also just sometimes interesting to see, I think most of the people who post these, obviously they're posting in a very public place like LinkedIn. I think they have relatively good intentions, but have probably just, gone that step too far in how they're addressing it. Many times it's probably just venting, right? They had one bad experience and they're venting about it more broadly. But I mean, maybe that's what, like we said earlier, an insight or a window into this is not the type of environment that I myself want to work in.
And all the examples that we used today, they were all posted by men. And I would say there's a great vast majority. I've certainly seen posts by women that have been equally unhinged, but I think there is this level of patriarchal, and I'm right, and you should only listen to me.
Got to be the hunter.
Got to be the hunter, not the gatherer. Well, I actually have I have another a similar idea for us, and maybe we'll do something fun for our season finale.
Okay.
Because I thought of it when we were trying to figure out what to talk about today. Right at the last minute, I was like, oh, we could do this. And we don't have enough time to put it together for today, so I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. So look forward to another fun episode. But we will be back again next week with some more serious discussion about careers. And we'll see you all next time on CS Radio. This podcast is produced by the University of Pennsylvania Career Services Office, a division of University Life. It was created by J. Michael DeAngelis and Amy Lynn Kirshner. Your hosts and producers are J. Michael DeAngelis and Natty Leach, and it's produced, mixed, and edited by Lorna Lynn. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at Penn Career Serve. We'll see you next time on CS Radio.